So Klint Kubiak is running the hottest offense in all of football, and the tape does not lie. This guy is absolutely elite. Today we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what this guy is going to bring to the Raiders, why I think this guy's an absolute superstar caliber offensive coach, and we're going to look at some of what this guy has done for the Seahawks. We're going to talk about the variations that this guy runs, and we'll just start right away for probably what I'm most excited for. That's going to be a Raiders version of the tush push. If you guys don't know this, Klint Kubiak had their starting tight end, A.J. Barner, run this play a ton. You're basically quarterback sneaking on 3rd and short, red zone. You know, you need those tough yards or two potentially. A.J. Barner got the call, and again, he was the starting tight end for the Seattle Seahawks. The Raiders will have their variation of this, and it'll be interesting to see if it's going to be Brock Bowers that's going to be quarterback sneaking or if it's going to be Michael Mayer. Something tells me it's going to be Michael Mayer. Now, it might end up just being Brock Bowers, given he's a starting tight end. And, there'll be situations where it's like, 2nd and 8, you pick up 7 yards, and now it's 3rd and 1. And you don't want to make some sort of switch. And a Mayer might not be on the field. You want to quickly get up there and snap the ball. In that instance, Brock Bowers probably makes sense because he'll be out there for most of the game. But keep in mind, I think Michael Mayer is kind of more like A.J. Barner as opposed to Brock Bowers, more of like a playmaker. So it'll be interesting, but to keep in mind, this is something Klint Kubiak is going to bring over to the Raiders, and it's something I'm actually excited about. I want the Raiders to be current. I want them to run the latest trends, the things that work. And this is something you're going to notice with Klint Kubiak. He actually does, right? Like, he doesn't just run his offense that he's installed in training camp. He adds new elements and new wrinkles over the course of the season. I'll just show you guys a quick example of something. He did not run this play right here to Rashid Shaheed, a wide receiver they ended up trading for. He did not run this play right here. It's a play action, and essentially it's an end around to Shaheed. He did not run this play at all season, and he utilized it in the final game of the season against the Los Angeles Rams. This was a play that they needed, right? As in, this was a game, I should say. This is a game that they had to win, right? And this is a whole new play. They never called this. And I know because I've watched every single one of these snaps that these guys have had. Every single one of the carries that the wide receivers and non-running backs have had. They never once called this play. And they called it not only against the Rams, but 2 weeks later against the 49ers, they called the same exact play. Or maybe it was a week later against the 49ers. They ended up calling the same exact play. And once again, Shaheed ends up getting the end around. And keep in mind, these were plays that were never called. And Klint Kubiak calls them as the season's kind of coming to an end, playoffs kind of come around, and he hasn't called them since. Again, only called them twice. There's a chance we see this play right here in the Super Bowl, so we'll see if it ends up happening. And again, just the creativity with Klint Kubiak. The fact that you get you have the tush push. It's a very hard play to stop. The fact that you have creative ideas that you're installing late into the season, you're not just relying on your base packages and your base plays. And there's so many more things that he kind of adds, and I want to kind of just get into it. I want to get into the meat and potatoes of what Klint Kubiak's offense really looks like. So one of the things you're going to see a lot with Klint Kubiak is outside hitting run concepts. And this is where his offense basically is built upon. It's these outside run concepts, and there's really 3 that they're going to go to. The first is going to be a wide zone concept, which is basically going to be a toss play to the outside, and it's zone blocking up front. So every single one of the offensive linemen, the tight ends, they're essentially reaching to the left or they're reaching to the right. And these plays hit really, really well. But keep in mind, this is a very important concept for the Seattle Seahawks, for Klint Kubiak specifically. So you get the wide zone. The other play you're going to get that's an outside hitting run play is going to be a pin pull concept. And a pin pull it's considered a power-based run concept. But really, I think the wide zone, the pin pull, it's kind of a similar category, although one's technically considered zone, the other's considered a power-based concept. But the thing with the pin pull is only the front side down block as well as the tackle that pulls out in front, only those 2 guys are really utilizing power, right? Everybody else is essentially reach blocking when it comes to the offensive lineman. The other and final 3rd variation that Klint Kubiak runs in terms of outside hitting run plays is going to be just basic outside zone, right? So outside zone, wide zone, just 2 different type of outside based run concepts. Pin pull also hits the outside. So those are going to be the 3. And I really want to get into why this matters so much, right? First and foremost, I think the biggest improvement the Raiders are going to end up having going into this next season is that our run game is going to be designed a lot better. Guys on the offensive line are going to know exactly who to block on every single play, right? Every single moment of a game. And just take this example right here. On this play right here, notice that you have guys that have to essentially figure out who to block, right? And depending on the front, depending on the movement, the blocks change, right? So there's rules that the offensive linemen clearly understand. Take this example here. The left guard center understand who they need to block. The left guard has to double, and then he has to get up to that backside linebacker. And the center understands this as well, right? This is like a basic understanding that this is how this play is going to hit. The tight ends, the wide receivers, guys know exactly who they need to get to. And I know this is a basic part of football, right? Just understanding rules and understanding who you're supposed to block. But remember, under Luke Getsy, the Raiders struggled with this concept. Under Chip Kelly, this most recent season, the Raiders were not able to figure out who they were supposed to block. We had guys that were confused. Guys like, the left guard, left tackle go to one guy, and then the linebacker essentially goes freeze and just blows the play up. There was a reason why Ashton Jeanty this past season was hit in the backfield as much as he was. The offense was not installed correctly. The rules were not correctly understood. The Raiders were confused as hell this past season. That's not going to happen with Klint Kubiak. So we talk about the wide zone, the pin pull. We talk about the outside zone. But there's a basic version of these plays, as I've already kind of shown you guys. And then there's the variations, right? Let's run this play off of an outside zone look. And I kind of want to go there, and I kind of want to show you guys some of what this team does. But before we get into that, I just want to show you guys one other thing as well. One of the things that Klint Kubiak also kind of throws into his offense is it's going to be like time-based, right? And what I mean by that is this. The offense is going to break a huddle. They're going to run up to the line of scrimmage. And they're going to quickly just snap the ball as the play already kind of is. You get into that formation, you quickly get up there, you snap the ball, you run that play, right? Very quick. The defense, it doesn't even really have time to set. They're not really ready. And then on the other side of this, the Seattle Seahawks come up to the line of scrimmage, and they'll quickly get up there, and the defense is set, and they think, hey, the play's about to get snapped, and instead, one guy goes into motion. And take this play against the Carolina Panthers as a great example of this. You get up there, one guy goes into motion. The Panthers don't have the time to react because you're going to snap the ball as soon as this guy's kind of going into motion already. And on this play here, this one actually ends up hitting for 29 yards against the Panthers. But here's why this play is crazy. Just kind of taking this back here. As soon as the offense is kind of set, the defense is kind of set, and as soon as that slot wide receiver starts to go into motion, if you guys keep an eye here on the cornerback, he's trying to communicate to the safety. He's trying to say something to the safety in terms of the run fit. And the safety's confused, right? The safety has his eyes into the backfield. The safety's not really looking at the corner. There's miscommunication right here on who has the inside run fit and who has the outside run fit. They're not really 100% sure, and because this happens so fast, because of the fact that you're changing the timing, you're changing the run fits by putting a guy into motion. Essentially what's happening is both guys go outside, and Zach Charbonnet cuts this to the inside. So what's happening is the defense thinks that, the offense is set. They're about to snap the ball, and a guy goes into motion, and now your run fits change. What happens on a different play is the defense might come out there and be a little lazy and say, hey, let's wait for that motion to happen before we fully commit to our defense. And then what happens is they quickly hit you right away. They don't even have any motion. The play's set, and they go. So, there's like this mind game type of thing that's kind of happening with Klint Kubiak and the offense. And that doesn't get into the other variations of what we're kind of seeing, right? And let me take you to the outside zone, wide zone, play action type of plays, right? Because I think it's very important to kind of understand some of what ends up happening. When you hit a team on an outside zone concept to the right, what's going to happen next is, as an offense, you can come to that same look and say, we're about to run this outside to the right. And as a defense, they're going to say, well, that's to our left. We know the play's coming. So let's overcommit a little bit. And what the offense does is then they're going to play action this, and they're going to bootleg to the opposite side, and you have all these routes over the top to the opposite side. And because the defense just got hit for 30 yards, they're overcommitting to the run. Guys slip behind the defense to kind of get wide open. This is very basic, right? Basic stuff right here. And trust me, this isn't what I'm getting to. This is basic stuff, right? This is what every team does. Hey, we're going to run the football. We're going to play action bootleg off this play, and we're going to have our routes kind of develop over here to the opposite side of that play action. This is where Klint Kubiak gets kind of creative. All right, so first and foremost, if you bootleg to the left, You play action to the right. Usually your routes are going to be towards that same side. But here's where Klint Kubiak kind of gets a little creative. He reads the defense. He attacks guys in coverage. He attacks specific guys. And we'll just take this first play here against the Rams. You're actually going to get a play action to the right of the formation. The quarterback's going to start booting to the left. And notice all the routes are going towards that same side, towards the left. But one tight end ends up slipping to the right. He ends up faking to the left, hits us to the right, and you're going to get a 26-yard touchdown pass. So essentially, you've run this concept 100 times, right? 10 times a game, you're running this outside zone concept. 10 times a game, you're running this outside zone play action to the other side. And then once you throw in this random wrinkle where the outside zone happens, the play action bootleg to the opposite side happens. But instead of every route going to that same side, you have one tight end that slips to the corner or to the pylon. That's a wrinkle that Klint Kubiak throws in there. Now you might think, great, let's just play the tight end, right? Just keep an eye on the tight end, make sure the tight end doesn't do this again. Well, Klint Kubiak will add another variation to this. This time they'll play action to this to the left, and everybody, including the tight end, goes to the right. But this time they understand it's cover three, is one safety deep. Instead, what we'll do is we'll isolate Jackson Smith-Njigba or Brock Bowers, and we'll make him the guy that instead of coming across the formation, he ends up hitting a corner route towards the left, and we'll give him an opportunity. This is some of what we're seeing from Klint Kubiak. He'll put another variation in there. It'll be an outside zone play action. They'll come back to the right, bootleg to the right, and then you have a screenplay over here to the left. And, there's just so many different things Klint Kubiak continuously does. And I think this is part of what makes this guy such a special coach. It's all these little things that you have to kind of factor in. It's the fact that he'll create new concepts. He'll create new plays like the Shaheed end-arounds, which did not happen up until like week 16 or whenever they first did it. I think they did it first against the 49ers to be exact. This is part of what Klint Kubiak does. And, the pin pulls that I showed you guys, there's variations to this as well. You have the general pin pull, which is going to be like, we'll be under center. We'll have a pitch play to the right or pitch play to the left. The tackle pulls. There's another variation, which is when you get into shotgun, and you'll essentially run pin pull to the weak side of the formation, which the Seahawks did a lot as well. These are plays that hit because as defense, you don't really know what's coming. So many guys can block down and tackles can pull around. If you try over preparing for that play, they'll just hit you to an outside zone concept to the opposite side. You'll have the basic variations of pin pull with the tackle. Then you have the fullback pin pull, right? Which, it kind of looks like it's outside zone, but technically what's going to end up happening is on the front side, a wide receiver blocks down. Your fullback gets out in front as opposed to that tackle. Everybody else is kind of reach blocking. So it's a pin pull concept with the fullback being the lead guy. And the Seahawks did this a lot last season. I don't know if the Raiders have a fullback. I don't think we technically do, so we might have to get one of these for ourselves. Again, Klint Kubiak is very smart on a different play. Another variation he threw in there. Jackson Smith-Njigba goes into motion, and they run pin pull with him, right? They just essentially have him in motion, pitch him the ball, and they pull guys out in front. They pick up 15 yards on this play. So Klint Kubiak just has so many different things he can do essentially with his offense. And this is part of what makes him such a great coach, in my opinion. He'll run weak side, outside zone plays, right? This guy will just run every single play you can think of: weak side, front side, shotgun, under center. And this is the opposite of Chip Kelly. When I did the numbers from the time period when Chip Kelly was with the Raiders, there were so many things that stood out. Like shotgun, 2nd and 8 or longer, it's like 90% of the time it's a pass. Shotguns, generally speaking, on any given play, over 70% of the time it was a pass. You don't find these things with Klint Kubiak. His stuff is well balanced. These guys will run the ball on 3rd and 15, and they'll still pick the first down up. Like, they do not care. The Seattle Seahawks did that with Klint Kubiak. And here's another crazy thing to kind of keep in mind. The Seahawks offensive line is not that much better than the Raiders offensive line. Like, it's not that big of a difference. Truth be told, their centers, a 2nd-year UDFA, their right guard is a 3rd-round pick who a lot of Seahawks fans themselves have kind of written off. They spent a 1st-round pick on their left guard. He's pretty damn good. Their left tackle's pretty good, but I think Colt Miller's better than their left tackle. Their right tackle is probably their best offensive lineman. I think Colt Miller's still better than him, but he's up there, right? He's similar to Colt Miller. He's got very, very good offensive linemen. So the Raiders do have to get better, but just kind of adding in Klint Kubiak, it does make a huge difference, right? It's going to really allow the Raiders to be a better team. And for the most part, I've talked about like the play action type of concepts. But like in terms of quick game, one of the things you're going to see with Klint Kubiak is a lot of his quick game is similar to Mike McDaniel's quick game. And it's interesting because Klint Kubiak and Mike McDaniel, I don't think they've ever crossed paths. But I believe Klint Kubiak has picked this up from Kyle Shanahan. And I'm sure Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan also kind of picked it up or kind of came up to this together. But what it means is like the Raiders are going to have a lot of quick game elements where the ball's going to come out. And it's not necessarily like, hey, you're going to run sticks or you're going to, 100% run like dragon and it has to be like a 2-yard slant. Like it almost seems like the wide receiver's kind of running to an area like, it's going to be a slant to the inside, but what we need you to make sure if the corner's playing off, you get as close as you can to this guy before you stem and cut to the inside. There's other plays, right? Like where it seems like there's no set of like it has to be 4 yards or 5 yards. It's more of like a mutual understanding. And I'm not 100% sure if this is fact or not. I don't really know, to be honest. But it almost seems to me like this feels more of like the Mike McDaniel passing plays, right? Those quick hitting type of plays. And I'm sure they still run basic quick game as well, right? I'm sure this isn't like all of their quick game. I'm sure Klint Kubiak has this all figured out. But the Raiders are not going to be an offense that's going to be guessing or super predictable. Like this is going to be a well-balanced offense under who I think is going to be an elite coach for the Raiders. And I'm telling you guys, man, I've said this over and over and over again. I don't lie to you guys when I tell you guys this. When the Raiders hired John Gruden, I was not really that excited. When the Raiders hired Josh McDaniels, I was definitely not excited. When the Raiders hired AP and even Pete Carroll, I was not excited for any of these guys. I've always felt like, hey, these aren't those Kyle Shanahan, these aren't those Sean McVay type of moves. When Ben Johnson was coming out this past cycle, I wanted the Raiders to offer whatever it took to bring this guy in because I already knew this guy was going to be an elite coach. Klint Kubiak is up there in that same mold, right, in terms of being an elite coach. Now, I will also be honest with you guys, Klint Kubiak hasn't proven it long, right? He really had the 1 year with the Seahawks. Before that, he was pretty good with the Saints for the first couple of games before the injuries happened. But we haven't seen him, for 3 years consistently the way we saw with Ben Johnson. But I still do think Klint Kubiak in the year has really proven it. And even in the half year with the Saints, he kind of proved himself at that point as well. I think the Raiders are going to be really, really, really elite on the offensive side as we go forward. But I do also want to just kind of wrap it up saying this. The Raiders are obviously going to draft the quarterback. I think Fernando Mendoza is the guy they're going to draft. Klint Kubiak would have taken the Buffalo Bills job. Realistically speaking, if he was not 100% sold on Fernando Mendoza. So I do hope that ends up working out for the Raiders. Because if it works well for the Raiders, we're going to win a Super Bowl in the next 10 to 15 years. Or we'll be competing every year. We'll be in the playoffs almost every year. And I'm excited as hell for that, man. It's finally the Raiders' time to kind of get lucky where you have the number 1 overall pick. You have the best coaching candidate. And the best coaching candidate is not just a guy that we'll see if it works. This is a guy where I'm confident it's going to end up working out. I'm excited, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing. These videos are fully demonetized. Anytime you put tape in as B-roll, as you guys have seen over the course of this video, the video does get demonetized by the NFL. They're very strict. I don't know why, but they've been very, very strict recently with tape. So at least hit the thumbs up button, man. This video took like 5+ hours to make from start to finish. So thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.